Hey guys, this is Mike from the James16Group here with the trade I just initiated on the pound Australian to show you an example of using both the web app to find these opportunities from Autochartist and then combining it, again, going over to MetaTrader plugin on your MetaTrader 4 platform and using that to your advantage here. So again, here's the trade on the pound Australian. And again, it's going to be based not just on this pattern, but mainly on this wedge pattern. So we have this 30-minute wedge pattern spotted by Autochartist here. So here's your falling wedge. Again, this pattern, as we spoke about, indicates price should move higher. So we've started to see that breakout, right? So here's our initial sort of breakout over here. Price starts to move higher. But I've actually entered now on the pullback, and we're going to go over that. So the reason I found this interesting here is, and let's go ahead and pull up the Autochartist web platform here. Again, there's so many patterns on the pound Australian here indicating a move higher. Look at this. Look how many patterns there are, guys. We have a 15-minute channel down indicating a move higher. We have another 15-minute channel down indicating a move higher. A falling wedge indicating a move higher. We have a 60-minute falling wedge indicating a move higher. So, you know, when you see a layer upon layer upon layer of the same pair indicating a move in the same direction, it's time to take notice. Again, as with everything we do in trading, don't take that as a blind signal to trade it. But that's when you should start to go, okay, maybe there's something I need to be watching here. Maybe I need to go look in closer detail. And again, it's another way to filter what pairs you're watching and what pairs you focus on for, you know, a session that you're going into. So the reason I'm liking the pound Australian now is a lot of factors here. So again, I'm going to combine the initial thought from Autochartist of saying, listen, we have multiple patterns saying price should move higher. So time to take notice, right? And then we're going to look and see what the price action is to see if there is a trade to take. So if we look at this, there's some really interesting price action on both the 30-minute and I'm going to switch to the hourly chart too, which just popped up, showing us another possible move higher here. So we've had this pair really sitting at a lot of support here. So I'm just going to zoom out to, let's just go to the hourly here first, and then I'm going to go to the 4 hour. So if we go to the hourly here, again, here's our channel that's just forming. So again, it's going to look like this. It's a little bit slightly off here. So again, here's our channel forming. Price is finding support at this extremely prominent area, right? Look at all this support here. So this thing has been in a steep downtrend, but really struggling to break lower here, right? So notice as we try to break lower one last time here, price gets rejected again, putting us into this channel, right? Now we're going to come back and we're actually using the price action from the hourly chart here, but also, again, our 30-minute wedge, right? So we spoke about why these wedges are important, right? It starts to show a momentum loss to the downside, right? Remember, we were speaking about how as price tries to make new lows, it moves higher. Price tries to make new lows, moves higher. Price tries to make a new low underneath this major support. Look what happened last time we were here, right? And what does price do? It starts to move higher. And then again, we're now breaking out of the resistance of this wedge point. So where the sellers were capping price, right? Where sellers were saying this trend line here, every time we hit it, we're going to push price down. Well, that's now given up, right? Price is now able to close outside of that area. So what I'm actually using here to enter into this trade is this bar here on the hourly chart. So I'm going to be using a combination of what we've spoken about previously as price pivot zones, and I'm going to explain to you a new bar that we use in the James16Group, and it's called a Wick Bar. And essentially what a wick bar is you're looking to fill through the wick that is created by a weak closing bar. So let me dig into that because it might be a little confusing, but again, we're analyzing the price action to understand who has the upper hand. Are the buyers stronger or the sellers stronger? And the way we're going to do that here is simple. So firstly, again, remember we spoke about price pivot zones, right? So look at the support here, right? Support, support, extend that over. A lot of support here. And then again, look what happens when price breaks down under this area, right? So price breaks down here. What happens when it pulls back? Turns to resistance. Turns to resistance again, right? resistance, resistance, resistance. So we have a very strong price pivot zone right here. Now, here's the key though, right? Look what price does. It pops through this area strong, and look where it closes, right? It closes above this previous resistance and back above the support. So what's likely to happen now at this previous resistance area? There's a good chance that that turns back into support. So that's why we bought right where we did, right? Good chance that this turns back into support and price moves higher. Now, I mentioned something about a wick bar. So again, I'm looking for more reasons to understand why I should get into a trade. The more you have, right, and that's confluence, the more factors you have in your favor, the better. So we started with the confluence from Autochartist, right? Multiple patterns suggesting we should move higher. Now we're going to bring in the confluence of price action within those patterns and breaking out of those patterns to just increase our odds even more. So we get that in a price action confirmation bar here of a wick bar. So the way I look at a wick bar is pretty simple. So let's break it down just very simply up here first. So let's say, again, here's our support, right? Then price breaks through, it turns into resistance, right? So here, same thing that happened here, right? We had our support, break down, price turns into resistance. Now again, when price gets back over this area, it's likely to turn into support again. But what we're going to utilize here in this area is this wick bar. And a wick bar simply represents the path of least resistance. So when you have price close above this area, but you also have a wick that extends through that area, right? So there's that wick that extends through that area. Well, that's an absorption of sell orders. So when you see any price action on your chart, that's just an absorption of buyers and sellers. It's just, what did previous sellers do? What did previous buyers do? So we had sellers come into the market here, right? So sellers came in here, pushed price down, but they could not push price back under that price pivot zone, right? So they kept it closed above that area. Buyers were strong enough to keep price above that area, and sellers were absorbed to this area. So now the path of least resistance actually becomes through that wick, right? So let me repeat that again because it's a little bit complicated, but it's not when you think about it simply. Sellers came into the market above this area here, right? Those are your sellers pushing price down. But the buyers were able to keep price closed above our price pivot zone. So now those sell orders were absorbed. So actually buyers will now have an easier time pushing price through that wick because you have less sellers in the way. Now, that doesn't mean new sellers might not come into the market, but we now know a certain amount of sell orders were absorbed, but were not impactful enough to close us, say, back underneath this price pivot zone where we would likely move down. So again, this to me is a very strong signal we're headed higher. Again, we have the breakout of the wedge here. We've now pulled back to that pattern. So we've pulled back to this resistance area too. From a diagonal standpoint, price breaks out, pulls back. We buy in here, right? Because we know we're above this strong price pivot zone. Price has tested this huge support area. Where's price going? Right? So price is now going to move to the next resistance area. That's the next logical place. Again, here you can see Autochartist target, right? So I'm targeting just slightly under that. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm utilizing the big round number here of 1.9. So I'm just using a round number to pinpoint my final target here. Again, I'm starting with my stop underneath this pattern, just underneath this area, because you got to give it a little bit of room. You know, we want to test down in here like we're doing, and then just see if we can push higher here. So again, I'll update this video each time. We'll look for this area to hold the support, and we'll see what happens. Just want to do a quick update here, guys. So look at how price is finding support here now, right? So it's trying to move lower. You know, again, the markets aren't perfect. You can see, you know, price likes to overshoot a little bit, test through. But look at how price cannot close below this area. Look at this. It's just finding perfect support here. So again, as we start to approach a little bit higher here, if we do, I'll get my stop loss underneath these lows and then see if we can get a final push into the big round number here. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go ahead now and move my stop loss underneath these lows. Again, price shouldn't have to come back underneath this area. This is pretty significant move away. You know, again, we could retrace again, but we really want to see sort of a follow through at this point. All right, guys, so as you can see, we've continued to hold the support. Look at how strong this level is, how price could just not close under it. And again, we kept testing lower, moving higher, testing lower, moving higher. But now we're moving through that wick. So don't forget about that hourly bar. That's the wick we're looking to fill through. So price has really gone to where I've expected. I'm going to hold a little bit here, but what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to go to break even. Again, take all my risk off the table and just see if we can get a final little push here towards that big round number. All right, guys, I'm actually going to close this one out here. Again, we have FOMC coming out in a little bit here, so things might get a little bit crazy, a little bit choppy. Just decided to take my profit here, and again, we did fill through the wick. We'll see if we can get a push further. Again, don't be surprised to see a nice move higher, but again, with the FOMC coming out this afternoon, things could get a little bit tricky. So again, hopefully this video helps. Hopefully you guys are starting to catch on and starting to practice this on demo for yourselves.